Hi, I'm Kevin Quigley, and welcome to Tarot Off the Cuff. A native of New Orleans, Gina Thies loves writing, talking, and teaching about topics that concern tarot readers. She's the creator of the Tarot of the Moors, a unique and gorgeous deck that I'm sure you're going to want to check out.
Hello, Tarot World. This is Gina Thies here with another episode of Tarot Off the Cuff. This is a project brought to you by Kevin Quigley and Nancy Antenucci that I am so happy to be a part of. I'm going to get started by drawing a card off the top of the deck that I'm using, which is my deck that I created that came out last year. It's called Tarot of the Moors. This is the Death card. I think is the most dreaded card to draw in a reading. And so death frightens people. They get confused when it shows up. They will tell you, just don't draw the death card or don't tell them anything bad. They don't want to hear anything bad. And but it's also ironic because on the other side, some people want to know exactly what might be happening that's bad, or they'll, even if you have the most beautiful, positive, exciting reading, you don't see anything bad. And so there's a curiosity and a fear, which I think it's ultimately the fear of the unknown that people are most fascinated by, right? And so to me, death is a part of life. I think death has always fascinated humanity as a whole, you know, because it is the end of what we know in this realm of mortality. Death has been said in terms of tarot, almost, I think any one of us, no matter what level, what part of your tarot journey you're on, you will hear or have heard that the death card does not mean physical death. You will hear that repeatedly. People will write about it and tell you that. And I think personally, I will always tell my students or anybody that I read for, it does represent physical death. Sorry, people, I think it does. Here's why. It's in those 78 cards, it talks about life. So how can you have a card that talks about giving birth, right? Oh, we have an Empress card that talks about pregnancy. You know, you'll hear a lot of cards that talk about the beginnings of life. So you mean to tell me, realistically, there's no ending of life? Okay, I think that was just put there as a caveat, really, for the people that have written and come up with interpretations of tarot to kind of do a CYA on their own stuff. I will personally attest to when the death card shows up for a client, and I don't care if I'm reading for someone in a one-on-one appointment or at a party, and that card comes up, they are dealing with some sort of looking at either their own mortality or something that they've lost. So death, in a sense, doesn't have to be a physical death, but it is about a conclusion, an ending. Everyone wants to say, oh, it's about transformation. Things are going to change in your life. Yeah, possibly, because something has to come to an end. And one of the things I do encourage about the death card, maybe in terms of transformation or change, is that person that's popping up for may or may not have control over that change. Do we have control of when we die or not? Unless we are doing something really morbid, as in suicide, we don't try to choose when these endings are going to happen, unless you're doing a metaphorical suicide of some sort. I think in the recent times, depending on which side you are, probably this is all coming about after the 2020 pandemic. So a lot of us are looking at death or dealing with death. And so we're going through a grieving process. One of the things that we are always, I've noticed people dance around is the process of grieving, right? And so as a person that is sitting on the opposite side of a table, or in this case, a video camera sometime, you're going to be dealing with people that are in different stages of grieving. They're afraid of what is the unknown. And so it may happen that death has to be a discussion. Sometimes it's a different type of death, right? And so suppose death doesn't mean that someone, there's a loss of your life or your loved one's life, but it could be the death of a job, the death of a relationship, right? It's coming, something is coming to an end. If you try to describe death in terms of transformation, I think that transformation, it's not necessarily the end in terms of transformation. Something is going to be a metamorphosis. You know, you may be creating that death because, say, for instance, let's take in terms of physical stuff, dieting. You may want to change your physical appearance. Well, you have to allow the death of certain habits to happen. You can't eat the same way. You've got to change your exercise routine. So there are different types of transformations and endings in death that can occur. I have had people tell me when they read at happy occasions, a birthday party, any sort of celebration, they remove the bad cards. And depending on how you view those, so being death, you know, the devil, they want to take those out. I'm like, you may as well take out temperance too, because the experience of temperance is not necessarily pleasant. I mean, you can find positive spins on any card. There are also, you know, it's two sides of a coin, so to speak. So some people read reversals, so they may associate sort of the negative or things that are not living to the highest potential in terms of their reversals, right? So if you're reading reversal and you get the death card, does that mean the opposite of what death represents? I don't know. It all depends ultimately on what you assign to the card. So if you decide in your process of reading that death does not represent physical death as far as your process and where you come from, then it may just do that, you know? And I think we cut ourselves off if we don't allow what a card that shows up with a skull on it, or a skeleton on it, it has represented death through the millennium, you know, for such a long time. How could it be anything different? So there are many cards that can represent physical death, but we do ourselves a disservice if we're not dealing with a person's grieving process, or they may want to address it. It's like dancing around a gray elephant in the room. I guess it's about the things that we don't want to face, and we're so accustomed to sweeping things under the rug. And I think readings are supposed to be that time where you have some sort of illumination. You shine the light on circumstances and problems. Just ask, what are your fears around death? This death card has showed up for a reason. What's your thought around death? Are you dealing with a loss? It may come to or be apparent that a person is sitting there grieving over the loss of a life change of some sort. And the first opportunity they may have to talk about that is when the death card shows up. When they're sitting across from you and there's no other person. Because remember, folks, I think we are sometimes the only system, only support that a person that is seeking may have. And whether it's paid or not, or someone, you know, you're doing this reading in whatever capacity, it becomes a system of support, even if it's for yourself. And so staring in the face of death, sometimes it just wants to be acknowledged. What is this loss? What are your fears around it? Maybe like absolutely no loss at all, but something may be occurring that is getting, it's bringing it up into the awareness level. It may be, I've found all sorts of instances where the death is on a person's Aquarian's mind. It could be someone's ill and they're afraid they're going to die, right? It could be that some distant some friend of theirs may be dealing with a loss and they're relying on them for support, which in turns are making them think about either people that they've lost or the meaning of life, right? I've seen it come up where someone has just lost someone. They may not have a chance to properly pay respects or have time to grieve because life just takes over. One of the biggest fears that we have is about having a separation of some sort and going through it alone. And so we have to look at that and be able to support a person through that. So what does that mean as a tarot reader or tarot advisor? You are sitting in a position of being a helper. Do have to come up ways to best navigate and advise a person. Guidance is what it comes up to be. And I think the most important thing is about why we do this is because we are helpers, people's spiritual health. There's a lot of ways to boost or educate yourself or boost your knowledge around what is it that we do in terms of our human behavior. And I think tarot addresses human behavior at all times. So there's nothing new under the sun in terms of how people react and behave. The only thing that changes is the circumstances that we are put in. And so we have to find ways of coping. And sometimes, coping is the name of the game. We always want to do something, to create, to make something happen. And as I've seen death, sometimes it's just as simple as letting it die. You don't have to do anything. It's almost like, if you stop giving water to a plant, it will just die. If you stop feeding into something that is sucking life out of you or draining you or not good for you or a deterrent, it's about not feeding into it. And sometimes you don't have to do anything for something to stop, except stop participation or giving it energy. You don't have to make a formal speech to get over something or to do anything. Sometimes it's just like, let the process just happen. Sometimes as much as things creep up, it will creep out. If you're dealing with a situation at an office and you've got a person that is being the antagonist or the thorn in your side, sometimes you have to just sit and know what you're going to do and how you're going to deal with it instead of going and getting into a confrontation, right? You don't know that sometimes situations are just temporary. If it's persistent, well, of course, you can always speak up and do something about it. But sometimes it's just that this person may be going through their own set of grieving, or they may be going through personal problems or whatever, and they don't have a system of support. So you have to sit back and realize and think through, like, what is this change or transformation, especially if they've gone through being one way and all of a sudden there's something being another way. So you have to consider those things. Anyway, this has been my spiel, my little presentation here on drawing death.
Hey, this is Kevin.
Hi, this is Nooch.
Thanks for watching.
If you like what you saw, please hit a thumbs up and subscribe. You'll know when new ones are coming. And share with your friends.
We'll see you soon.